All right, we are here. We're back this year. It's 2025, the craziest year ahead of us. We have no idea what's going to be going on as usual, but it's going to be even nuttier this year with both the changes in the CFP and all this stuff. So we've had some pretty interesting games just this week and last week. Upset out in Dublin. Lots to talk about and lots to unpack for tomorrow. So with me, of course, as always, is Randy. So Randy, how you doing, bud?
Doing well.
Excellent. We're here with you on a Friday night. Friday Night Lights. I just got back from a high school football game where my daughter did the color guard. So, and
Cool.
it was pretty cold out there. It feels like it's late October already.
Yeah. Mm.
So, lots to unpack. Real quick, what we've had seen so far. Did you catch anything last week in week 0? Did you see anything last night at all? Or
Well, I seen a little bit of the highlights with Boise State. That was a little bit of a shocker there, and you know, I don't ever recall. The start of a season. I don't ever recall a start of the season like they're going to have tomorrow.
no doubt.
No, there was always one or two marquee games, big matchups, but I don't ever recall having what they're going to have tomorrow, which is like 4 or 5 games, which are absolutely you know probably 10 of the best teams in the country squaring off. So it'll be really interesting.
Yeah, it'll be and we had Nebraska and Cincinnati last night, which was kind of an interesting
Yeah,
game,
yeah,
especially the fact that it was at the Kansas City Chiefs place and it was a home game for Cincinnati. Very weird, but Cincinnati I thought played really good. And honestly, I thought they came out of it playing with a decent loss. They had a really good chance right at the end. They threw a pick, underthrown ball on the 1 yard line,
right.
and their quarterback was pretty much their offense. He did a lot of running, so they really got to pick the game up there. But they're playing, a pretty stout defensive team with Matt Rule and the Nebraska. So they I think they'll look good this year. We'll see what happens. But with K State getting upset by Iowa State last week in Dublin, I watched a lot of that. That was a sloppy game. I think it rained the whole time. I mean, it was
Right.
crazy.
Yeah.
I think it always rains out there. I don't know why they schedule games in that slop, but I guess slop games are fun to do. Reminds me of being a kid playing the mud bowls. But
Yeah.
so yeah, and then tonight I think Colorado is playing Georgia Tech, and the last I saw, Georgia Tech was down like 7-3. I haven't seen a score. Let me see if they got it up here. Illinois is up big on. Well, they're playing nobody, so of course they're up big. Where's it at here? It's not on there. Anyways, so interesting to see what Colorado's going to look like with Dion not having his son and Travis Hunter on the team to see
Right.
how good of a coach he is, and that's no offense to him, but a lot of people think who he had was a big part of it. So we'll see. But yeah, tomorrow, we got Texas Ohio State at noon, Alabama at Florida State at 3:30. We got LSU at Clemson at like 7. And other than Florida State, all those teams are ranked. And the only reason Florida State's not ranked is because they had a horrible year last year. And the rankings being squad anyways, they're all just based on what happened last year and somewhat who you've got coming back. But what do you expect? I know being an Alabama fan, Milrose gone, DeBoer's in year 2. What are you looking for? What do you know about the 2025 team for the Crimson Tide?
Well, they're a lot like a lot of other teams that we're seeing. There are so many unanswered questions that we have with what arguably be. I mean, I don't even think you can argue it, but the top 5 teams in the country have a quarterback question mark. You know, Ohio State. They got saying going.
Right.
Texas. We hear all about Archer Manning, but we really haven't. What are you doing, Cat? We really haven't. We really haven't got to see what he can do.
Right. That's true.
Georgia in the same situation. Um, I mean, there's so many questions. I think probably. I mean, Clemson's pretty well set because I mean we know their guys coming back and all the hoopla for LSU and that guy. So yeah, I mean lots of questions going into this first week, and we don't know. People can say whatever they want, how great somebody's going to be, or how they're going to be a flop or whatever. But I mean, there's just no telling what we're going to get. And I mean, Alabama is, and going back to your question, Alabama is in the same exact boat. Ty Simpson taking over. So, new quarterback there, like I said, much like all the other teams. So, I mean, you just don't know what you're going to get. I look for them to have a strong defense. Offensively, I don't know. I know, they lost one of their key running backs. So, it's just going to be interesting. College football tomorrow is going to be interesting for every fan.
Oh
Um,
yeah.
for the most part, because we don't know. We don't know about Ohio State. We don't know about Alabama. We don't know about Georgia. We don't know. I mean, we can, we know they're going to be solid teams because they have all kinds of talent across the board.
Right.
But what are we going to get? Um, we don't know. So I mean, that's why tomorrow is just a day for you to just turn on the TV and sit there till about midnight.
Oh yeah, and what are going to be the crazy storylines nobody saw coming? Like is any of the ranked teams that are playing cupcakes going to get shocked? Usually they're at home when it happens. Could be none, but you never know. Like you said, week one. Personally, preseason rankings. I know you and I both don't like them. We think they're useless. But I personally wouldn't have had Ohio State as high as the people had them. And it's not because I'm a Buckeye fan, but due to the huge turnover, 14 dudes went to the NFL, and Texas had 12. So neither one of those teams really. But all it is it's a rematch of the last game Texas played, and it's a storyline and all that stuff, and that's fine. Sells tickets and booze and all that stuff. But as far as reality of teams coming back with a lot of players that should be pretty good, that are big names. Obviously, you say Clemson. There's definitely one of them. Penn State with Drew Aller, the Nussmeier at LSU. Mm-hmm. All three of those teams are expecting big things this year. And, of course, Penn State grabbed Knowles, which is Ohio State's defensive coordinator. He went there, all kinds of rumors as to what all happened there. Who knows what happened? Nobody will really know until 10 years from now when the documentary comes out. But he's there. So, it is what it is. Both Ohio State lost both coordinators. And as well as anybody, Alabama's lived that for the last decade and a half or so with Saban. Good coordinators move on. So you got to just toughen up, get other guys in there and see what happens. We got Matt Patricia now. We'll see what he's all about. We'll see if Hartline can call plays. Tons of unknowns. Like you said, they all got great players. There's no doubt. It's just whether or not they can all come together, chemistry and gel. And week one out of the box, there ain't no cream puffs with these teams because they're all playing some tough teams right out of the box. So, but with the current format, it's not going to hurt anybody if they lose a game because of how much you got in front of you and how many teams make the playoff. And if you can run your table, if you lose the first one. So it does make it nice. I tell you, I like 12 because I think it's fun. I like they took away the automatic qualifiers, so it kind of makes things a little more realistic on who's the top four. It guarantees pretty much Notre Dame will never join the conference because now they can get a first round bye because they're not in the conference. It was only conference champions that could do that before. Now it's the best teams. So lots of things going on there, but there's so many question marks. Can Indiana do it again or do anything like it again? Who's this year's Indiana? Blah blah blah. And what obviously Arizona State won worst to first. Last year was an amazing football year. Outside of the fact that Ohio State won, and I know they did, and I loved it, but trust me, it was a crazy year. Michigan, the beat down, and then they go and they run the table, and there's so many other stories that it was great. But this year's going to be fun, but it's going to be really interesting, to see how it all plays out. And that's why we love it and we watch it. And I just, as we say every year, I just hope they don't keep messing with the game too much where it ends up being a big pile of poo.
Yeah. I mean, you're absolutely right. And one of the other things I didn't mention about Alabama is, you got to remember we had a brand new coach come in last year.
Yep.
And I thought he was very easy. I don't know what you want to call it. I could be like the guy from Michigan and say how soft he is. That little ordeal. But so this year, I think we're going to see what we have as far as a head coach at Alabama, and that's one thing that we can't overlook because they went from probably the greatest coach in college football to a guy that we think will be okay, but last year he was not. I mean, he lost some games that he should have never lost, and especially the last two.
Yeah.
Oklahoma and that Michigan game. Oh my gosh, that was a
Yeah.
catastrophic thing for Alabama, in my opinion.
Yeah,
So
Oklahoma was ugly, but Michigan wasn't a whole lot better looking than that one. There's no doubt. I
yeah,
think I
so
heard a stat that they said in the entire time, or from a certain year to a certain year, Saban at Alabama, when they played unranked teams, they I don't think he lost. I don't think he ever lost to an unranked team. And last year, DeBoer lost 3 times, I think, to an unranked team. There's something.
they lost to who? Tennessee.
Was
They lost to
was Vanderbilt
Oklahoma.
unranked when they lost to him?
Yeah,
Yeah, Vanderbilt. Oklahoma was probably unranked when they
yeah,
lost to them.
they were.
Yeah, and then I guess Michigan maybe. I'm not sure if it was Michigan or somebody else, but
If they were way down
yeah,
way down the line. So that's probably the biggest question for Alabama is how's that going to play out? They say that he's done things quite different this year, so we'll see. But I was going back to what you just said. You know, does these games matter? Absolutely, they do matter. But the teams that we see tomorrow are not going to be the teams that we see.
exactly.
When they make a selection, if these teams make it, which I believe that they will, especially with the format that they have. That we're not going to see the same teams in December and January that we're going to see tomorrow.
Right.
So does it matter if you win or lose? Well, yeah, it does, because you don't have that loss, and then if you let's just look at Ohio State. Let's play a what if.
Sure.
If you lose to Texas, you got the loss. It's an out of conference game, not that big a deal. But then if you lose to Penn State and Michigan, 3 losses, you're not I don't think you're going to get into playoffs.
No, I don't think. I wouldn't think so either. And then you also play Illinois, which is somewhat of a wild card that not too many people pay attention to. They got a lot of guys coming back, and they have been playing decent football. So it's really remains to see how well they're going to be winning games this year. And even Nebraska is supposed to be a lot better this year. Who knows what Oregon's going to look like? Ohio State doesn't play some of those teams.
Right,
they do play Nebraska stuff, but yeah, I think 3 losses is almost a cutoff for. I think 2 is going to be it. I doubt 3 is going to get you in.
I don't think so.
But I just can't imagine how, because no matter how good you are, of course, it's still a committee, so who knows? But last year 3 didn't get into the SEC, and they really, some people really wanted the 3 to get in, but it didn't. It was all 2s and stuff, and that's the toughest conference. That's the one that if let's say if you lose a conference game in the SEC, then you're like, oh my gosh, I got 1 left, and that's the toughest. Every team's got maybe there's a team or 2 that don't have it too bad, but so many of the teams got a section of their schedule's got a gauntlet, like 3 in a row, and it's just ridiculous who they are,
Right.
And that's just because of the strength of the SEC and how deep and tough they are. The Big Ten is not like the SEC like that, but they're definitely second because they do got a few more teams than the Big 12 and the ACC does as far as making it through. That they were saying Dabo, if he loses to LSU, he's lost to an SEC team, and that makes it where he's really got to run the table in the ACC, because if he loses there, head to head against LSU, if they end up being against each other, they got the head to head. And, but then again, their conference is not as strong, looking on paper. You never know until it's all done. But so, yeah, but certainly I think 3 is the cutoff. It's hard to see anybody having 3 losses and getting in. I completely agree with that.
Yeah, and the one thing you're talking about conferences, and certainly the SEC has proved over the years that they probably are the stronger conference. But now I will say the Big Ten has closed that gap. Obviously they won 2 national championships in a row with Michigan, Ohio State. But what the Big Ten really needs to be back in the mix, they need Penn State, Michigan, Ohio State. So now we have. To me, now we have a true rivalry back with Michigan and Ohio State. There wasn't one when Ohio State ran off 10 in a row, 12 in a row, whatever it was.
Yeah, 17 out of 20.
Yeah, everybody. Well, of course, all the Ohio State fans are, this is the, but what it really wasn't. I mean, we had some close games, but you got to have that. the mix, the Iron Bowl.
Oh yeah.
I don't care if Alabama's 12-0 and Auburn is 1-10. When
Right.
those two teams meet, you just do not know. And Auburn's proved that because they've beat them.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
Now Michigan has beat Ohio State and brought
4
back
straight
that
times.
rivalry.
Yep.
But on the other hand, Penn State has not.
Yeah.
They keep getting the high ratings and all the hoopla and everything, but they have not won that game to me to put them in that mix to say, man, the Big Ten, man, it's not a Big One anymore because that's what I used to call it.
Oh, yeah.
It's not the Big Ten, it's the Big One. It was
Right.
Ohio State.
It was. Yeah.
Michigan back in the mix. You need Penn State. You need Penn State in there. I say that because I see Penn State as the next best team.
I agree with that. In Penn State, I can't remember exactly who they're playing for the first 3 or 4 games, but I think their first conference game, or it's just really early, and it's the whiteout game. They're playing Oregon. And I think that's a trap game because I know Oregon just seems like no matter who they put out there, they're a very tough team.
They are.
And I don't know if I'm completely sold on. We'll find out when we watch him. Is Drew Aller going to be different than last year? I mean, he was really good last year, but in the clutch situations, he made some really bad mistakes. Has he made enough? Has he moved up enough? They've got
Right.
2 great running backs. They don't throw the wide receivers very. So if their offense can show something, then yeah. And then last year when they played the Ohio State, they were up, pick 6 early, and then 10-0, and Ohio State fought back, and then in the game, Ohio State put a goal line stand on them, and then they ran the ball 9-10 straight times and ate the clock and walked out of there. They never got the ball back. So that's kind of stuff Penn State's got to turn around if they're going to step it up in the Big Ten. They can. I just don't know if they will. I don't know if they have everything that's needed. But if not, everybody's been saying, if not now, then when. They've got everybody back. Everybody came back. They got tons of players. They got new coordinator. So this is the year Penn State is. A lot of people are looking to see if they can make that jump. And
yes,
Yep.
I agree 100%. And that's what we need to see whenever they match up. We really don't know what's going to happen here. This is such a great rivalry.
right.
And like I said, now we have that. Like I said, the Michigan Ohio State thing is back, but Penn State just has not got over that hump to put themselves in that conversation with me. Can they do it this year? Maybe they can. Like I said, that's another one of those things we talked about when we kicked off the show was, man, so many questions of what's going to happen. Can Penn State get over the hump? Can all these first-year quarterbacks, can they, perform like we think they will, or what their potential is, or everything,
Right.
So, I mean, really, it's just it's going to be an exciting. I mean, I'm really excited about this season because there is all those unknowns.
Yeah.
A lot of times in the past, you kind of pretty much knew, well, these are the top 5 teams in the country. And when it's said and done, they were the top 5 teams in the country. It had been that way for several years.
Yep.
And there was always be 1 or 2, that would slip up in there, a little bit of a surprise or whatever. But, it was basically that's what it was. And, this year we have the potential of saying, wow, man, I have no idea what's going to happen here.
Oh yeah. When we talked about a lot of this NIL stuff a few years ago, one of the things that we were hoping that it could get players who aren't playing to go to other schools knowing they have a chance because there's an expanded playoff and everything's going to be kind of maybe starting to level out to where more teams can be better. And I think we're seeing some of that a little bit, with certain, Signetti going into Indiana, just turning that team around in 1 year. All that really proves is he can coach. There's no doubt the guy can coach. That team was as tough as anybody. They were not talented like some of the big teams we talk about, but they can be now that they've got what looks like a great program, and there's a lot of hype in that team. And because we got Carson Beck going to Miami, and what's that going to look like? With Cristobal.
Well, we have Notre Dame in Miami tomorrow, also, don't we?
Is that tomorrow or is that coming? You know what? I think I'll double check right now.
That was tomorrow.
It might be. Let me find.
I was thinking that was one of the other big games.
I don't. For some reason, I don't think it's this week, but I could be wrong. Or it's on Sunday or something. Oh, it's on Sunday. Yeah, Notre Dame at Miami at 7:30 on Sunday night, and also at 3 o'clock on Sunday, Virginia Tech and South Carolina. So yeah,
Right.
I mean that's a big because Notre Dame's got them, and then I think they got Texas A&M. And Texas A&M going to be out. They beat them last year. So, but last year's last year. It don't really matter what happened last year, especially in college football because so much turnover.
Right.
So yeah, it really is. Who's going to do what, and Penn State's got a tough deal. I know they got to go to Iowa, and they've just historically have never fared well at Iowa for whatever reason. Iowa just has like you got the whammy on them or something, where they just go there and they're expected to win. They don't. I'm not saying it's going to happen again. It's just one of those things. Sometimes they can't shake of until you actually do. So I don't know if they play Michigan. And they got that new quarterback at Michigan. They're all paid them, a boatload of money to play. So and they're like, hey, they named it a starter. Well, I hope so. It's $10.5 million. but
Right,
yeah,
right.
yeah, but yeah, well, yeah, a lot of cool things. It is tomorrow's going to be fun. Just sitting here and watching. I'm going to be folding laundry, watching football. That's what I do. I tell my wife, I watch football, I'll fold laundry. So I'm going to fold laundry, watch football. So
Yeah.
but,
Georgia Tech and Colorado 13-10 in the third quarter. Georgia Tech.
Are they
Colorado
nice.
13-10. Auburn and Baylor 17-10 Auburn. So that's I kind of forgot about that one. That's
actually a nice score for Auburn because Baylor has some have picked them to win the Big 12, and of course Auburn, Hugh Freeze's seat's so hot he can't sit down with everything he's got going on Auburn. So that's good for them. I mean that's somewhat bad for everybody else in the SEC. Here comes it looks like Auburn may have somebody this year. The SEC it's crazy. There's just so many teams that even when they're not having a great year, they're still tough out. Florida, Tennessee. What are they going to look like? Neo, I want more money. Lava lose to UCLA. They got App State's quarterback Aguilar, who went to UCLA and then came to Tennessee when Nico went out there. What's Tennessee going to look like? They're playing Syracuse, I think. I don't know if it's tomorrow or not because it might be in a couple of weeks because they're calling that the Orange Bowl because they're both orange teams.
I think they play.
It is tomorrow. It is
They
tomorrow.
play tomorrow.
Yeah, and it's at Tennessee, so they're calling it the Orange Bowl because both teams are orange. What's Tennessee going to look like? What's Syracuse going to look like without Kyle McCord? They had a great year last year for them, and he had a phenomenal season, and he's gone. So because crazy fool, I'm can't believe it's here. I'm happy it's here. Only thing that saddens me when football season starts is when I know the summer's ending. Other than that, it's great.
Oh yeah, I mean it's been I've been waiting, especially when we seen what the matchups were. I'm like, oh man, can't wait for that day to watch some of that stuff. And I just can't. What are we going to get? Of course, Arch Manning. We've heard all about Arch Manning. He's got the name. Absolutely, he has the name. I think he has the talent. I hope he's everything that they think he is. You probably don't.
Well,
he's for tomorrow.
Yeah, from a non-fan perspective, I feel for the kid. I think he's got a great family. I think they got a big head on the shoulders. He sat for 2 years learning. It's the way they used to do it. I think it's the best way to do it. I think he'll be more prepared than Sayan, and that's not taking anything from Sayan. He's a bigger kid. He's faster. He's a little stronger, but they're just saying that Sayan has incredible footwork and incredible release. Because he's only about 6'1", 6'2". He ain't very big. So we'll just see what happens. I trust him. They're putting Lincoln Kaneholz, whatever his name is. He's on the bench. He's like 6'5" or something. The guy was a 4-sport athlete at North Dakota or South Dakota or something. So he's an athlete. He played basketball, baseball, football, lacrosse or something like that. So he's a crazy athlete. He just hasn't had the polished pedigree in high school because they were saying probably where he went to high school, they only did cover 2, cover 3. They didn't do anything crazy up there in the middle of nowhere. So who knows? But yeah, if Sayan's the man, we'll see what happens. But getting back to Arch, the pumpkin head, saying, "Oh, he's the front runner for the Heisman." That's just such a clickbait. Why say that at all? Why put pressure on somebody like that when he's first starting that he's a front runner for the Heisman? There's 15 guys that could win the Heisman potentially. You just never know. I mean, there's receivers. Ohio State's got a receiver that could be Heisman material if Sane can throw on the ball. Jeremiah Smith. Dude's a nut. There's one in Alabama. Ryan Williams is crazy good. There's tons of guys. So I hate it when dudes stuff like that, but I understand it. They're journalists, if you will. But
well, you're exactly right. I mean, these guys aren't saying these things. This is all coming from the media.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
I think that I do think that Jeremiah Smith is probably the best wide receiver in the country. He certainly has the size, the tools, the speed, all those things. But the only thing about a wide receiver, unlike a running back or a quarterback, you got to get them. They've got to find a way to get them the ball.
Right.
But I was looking at the thing the other day. They said the average receiver, even in the NFL, they're talking about their hand size, and they said even in the NFL, the average hand size is like 9 1/4 inches.
Yeah.
And and I guess they're talking here to here.
Right. Palmed him. Yeah.
Yeah, they're saying his is 10 inches.
Right.
And so I mean, certainly that's helped with his size and everything, the strength of his hands. That he would be able to grab balls, make these great plays, and I think he will as the season goes on.
Sure. Yeah.
So some of this hype, the guys have. You got to see a little bit of it last year with some of them, but like I said, so many of them we haven't. So that's going to be the say it over and over.
Yeah, with Jeremiah, he's so big, he's muscular, he's just throw it high, he'll get it, kind of a thing, and that does work. But when they played Texas, he only had 3 catches, so Texas did a really good job of putting 2 on him and making sure other people beat you, and that's what's going to happen against good defenses. They're going to try to take, so you got to be able to run, you got to be able to throw to other people, weapons and stuff like that, and that's where they try to take one guy away, then you go to the other ones, and try to pull them out of that where they can't double team them. And that's going to happen too at times. So there's no doubt he'll get his, especially against some of the cream puffs. He'll load up on the stats, But it's just one of the. I mean, he wants to beat Michigan. I know that he's come out pretty clearly about beating Michigan this year. So we'll see what happens. Hopefully, he doesn't eat that crow. But Ryan Williams. I remember a couple of the games that I saw him. I think I've ever seen somebody running at top speed, jump and catch the ball, land, and do a spin move between 2 players. And never slow down. And I mean, I think it was Georgia. He did it against. Was it Alabama beat Georgia twice or something like that? Is that right? Or it was crazy. So they're different guys. And I think they're both incredible receivers. And I think for different reasons, I think they both should do nicely. When they go to the NFL, there's no doubt because I think Williams is faster than Jeremiah, but there's no doubt.
Well,
but they both have incredible ability to catch the ball.
He's also a lot smaller.
Right.
I mean, he's like, I think they say he's like 6'1" or something like that, and they're like, he's not 6'1", 5'11", maybe,
Right.
I mean, that's just, that's how they list. Oh, excuse me. That's how they list these things. So,
yeah,
maybe that. But like I was saying, we know about some of these guys. Some of the unanswered questions is what makes this start of this season so exciting.
I've watched a few games of different teams, some mostly Buckeyes, but some other games in the last month or so. And I watched, the highlights one, like in an hour. And I definitely watched the LSU and Alabama last year because and again, I was just so dumbfounded at how fast Milroe was and how he just absolutely sliced up that defense. I mean, it was. I remember you and I talking about him. Like, I've never seen that before. I mean, he looked faster than Jackson did when he was in Louisville. I mean, just Lamar. He was just unreal, And I remember the Kelly was looking at the defensive coordinator like, "You got an answer for all this?"
Well, you're absolutely right. He was. I wish he could have threw the ball a little bit better than what he could, but he was definitely probably one of the fastest guy on the field most of the time.
Oh gosh, yeah.
That was things. But talking about that, Brian Kelly looked at the defensive coach. You got an answer for that. The guy that does have an answer for that And the guy that we talked about this in the past before, that makes the best changes,
Have to, yeah, I know what
adjustments,
you mean. Adjustments. Yeah.
adjustments is Kirby Smart.
Yep.
If you watch Georgia and watch the first half of their game, the classic one was Alabama jumps up on them 30-6 or whatever, some kind of crazy score, and it happened in some of Georgia's other games.
Oh yeah.
And then they go into halftime and they come back, and Monroe was running all over him. He kept getting that corner,
Right.
and he was just killing them. Well, in the second half, he didn't get that corner at all. I mean, he did not. Yeah, no matter how fast he was. So, going back to the whole coaching thing, that certainly does come into play.
Yeah.
And and if we look at the coaches, honestly, I don't know how great a coach Ryan Day is. I mean, he certainly got it done last year. They won a national championship. You know, there's certain guys that I truly think, man, this guy is a great coach. The guy at Oregon's an awful good coach. Kirby Smart, an awful good coach.
Right.
So I think Dabo Swinney's an awful good coach.
Oh yeah.
Then there's some guys out there that you have question marks about. The James Franklin.
Right.
I don't know. Until he gets over the hump, like we were talking about earlier. I mean, I don't know. Ryan Day, can he follow up what he did? Because a lot of people say, well, last year he had a heck of a team and $20 million roster or whatever you want to call it. People come up with stuff no matter what it is. No matter how good you are or how bad you are, they'll either build you up or belittle you in one way or another. And I kind of hate that. That's the whole media thing and all that kind of stuff.
I tell you, coming out of that Michigan game, like anybody else that's an Ohio State fan, I was just like completely dejected. It's one of those things where you're like, where did that come from? Who's calling these plays? Chip Kelly, what's going on? It was just so many, like, why do we keep running it at their tackles, who are the two guys going to the NFL, the best players on their team, and we keep, there was so many, like, what's going, just couldn't believe what I'm watching,
Right.
And they're walking off the field, and getting into the playoff was the farthest thing from my mind at that point. The top thing on my mind was they're going to fire Ryan Day. He's done. They're just he's going to be fired, and that's going to be it. The year before they lost Michigan, then they had an absolutely horrible game against Missouri in a bowl. It was completely ugly. So I wasn't going to the forum. I was just like, whatever. And then, and I'm talking about last year, not,
Right.
not this past year, the 23, because they got beat by Missouri, and I'm like, they're going to fire Ryan Day. He's done. Because, lose. And then, Henderson's coming back, and I'm thinking, I like Henderson. That's kind of cool. Sawyer's coming back, Tuamolo's coming back,
Right.
and I'm thinking, and then Caleb Downs, and then Saban quits, and then and then Caleb Downs transfers, and I didn't know much about Caleb Downs, but he's one of the best safeties in the ball. Oh wow, that's kind of cool.
Julian Sayin transferred out of Alabama.
Yeah, when I heard they got Will Howard, that was the first that I perked up because I've seen him before. Yeah. I've watched K-State in games. I saw him win the championship in the Big 12, and then I thought, that's a quarterback I think we can win with. He's not the flashiest guy, but he's a very good quarterback. He can run, and he's tough. He's not a wimp, and he can throw the ball pretty darn good. He's not craziest guy throwing. And, and so that's when I perked up. And then when they make this big thing, they're going to come back next year and try to do it up. And thinking, all right, man, I can get behind this. And last year was a good year. It had times where it wasn't. There were times where it looked like who knows. But like you said, they're not in September. They're not the same team in November. And then coming out of that Michigan game, I thought, dang it, we're just not going to be able to get it done. And Ryan Day's fired. And then here comes that Tennessee game, and half that stadium sold their tickets to Tennessee fans because there was orange all over that place.
Right.
They made the money, and I watched it thinking, And then when they just jumped out all over them, I'm like, something's different. I don't know what's different, but something's different. And then it just went nuts from there. And so, Ryan Day recruits well. There's no doubt about it. And his staff, they recruit well. He's always had some really good quarterbacks. McCord was kind of a a bust, but dude's a 5-star. Devin Brown was a 5-star, and I really don't understand why he was, because he just never was good here. He transferred to Cal, and he's a backup there.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm not picking on the dude. I'm just, the ratings are what they are. They aren't always right, but so if they could, but Ryan Day's got an incredible winning percentage, and so now's the time where this season, if they can beat Penn State, but they got them at home, they got them at Ohio State, so they got a good shot at beating that team. Especially because I think it's in November, so they'll be, or maybe in October. They're going to be. It's not early, so they'll be well seasoned into the season when they meet that team. And then they beat Michigan. If they can beat them, of course they got to play Illinois too. And I think it's at Illinois.
I don't see I don't see Illinois giving them any problem. I just don't.
I wouldn't think so, but it's sometimes historically before Ryan Day was around. Urban Meyer, choked up on Iowa once, choked up on Purdue once. And back in the Tressel days, Illinois got the best of us on one game. You just never know. But, yeah, I mean, I want to say Illinois probably plays really good football, but they don't have the talent level and the depth that Ohio State probably does. But we'll see. But Ohio State's got a lot of answers on defense. The whole front line gone. A lot of backups that are in there that played some last year are there now. So we'll just see how those guys develop and stuff. But and that's every team. Every team's got new players on there. Sure. So that's what makes it fun. That's why we love the game. I mean, that's one of the main, one of the things I love about college football is how 3 or 4 years later it's a totally different team, and to still be consistently good is you're hoping that your team is that way, But and then watching all the other teams, I love watching South Carolina. They got that huge beginning and bringing the team in, and that Lawrence Sellers is a stud. He's almost like Milroe in a way,
Yeah.
So it's going to be interesting.
Well, there's, it is going back to the Ryan Day thing. And, of course, they took care of business with Tennessee. I mean, the way they did it surprised me. The fact that they did it, I can't say that really surprised me. But I almost, I got to wonder, where would Ryan Day be if it wasn't for the play against Texas? At the end, because Texas is 8-yard line, 4-yard line, whatever.
Yeah, they're inside the 5. Yeah.
Yeah. So with the chance to tie it up, I believe. I don't think they would.
Yeah, it would. It was 14-7. 14-7.
Yeah. So we don't know that. How that would have played out.
Yeah.
But, you think, man, that came down to one great play by a defensive player. I mean, that was call it a great play by the defensive player, along with the stupidity play by the offensive player.
Yeah.
You had that great play that changed that whole thing.
Oh yeah.
And that changed everything for Ohio State. I mean, you're right. I mean, you've seen a different team. That you finally seen the team that everybody thought that we would have seen the whole season.
Yes.
And you didn't. There was just times they just did not look that well. So
True.
Sometime wonder. I thought, man, that one great play. Where would Ryan Day be if that guy didn't make that play?
Right.
If Texas would have won that game, of course. I mean, I can't just say that would have, made a difference, but it certainly swayed that game in a big way.
Because that was late in the fourth quarter, and that made it
a
14-point game instead of a tie game. Because they had, it was a goal line stand to a certain degree. There was 2 pass interference penalties, and then, the plays that happened thus far. And, and even before that, at halftime, was it 7-0 Ohio State? Right before half, Ewers throws a touchdown pass, ties it up 7-7. They kick off. Buckeyes run one play, screen to Henderson, and it goes to the house for 14-7, just like that.
Yeah.
I mean, that play right there changed the whole first half because here's Texas tying it up, and then boom, right back at him. So there was definitely instances where great players made incredible plays during that whole run.
Well, like I said, that defensive play. I mean,
oh yeah.
If you're a Texas fan, I'm not even a Texas fan, but I'm like, what are you? When they ran the first play, I'm like, what are you doing?
Right.
I mean, good gosh, man, what do you think you're the friggin'? That reminds me of Pete Carroll was with Seattle on the 1-yard line and with the beast mode, and he throws the football.
Yeah.
It just absolutely crazy. And then the one guy for Ohio State, comes in and the ball bounces right to him and he's gone. And, like I said, that's pretty much a game, set, match. And, and that was a great game. But,
I'll be honest, Ewers, I don't know how high he was ever gonna be drafted but at one point he was expected to be a pretty high pick. Almost like when he first kind of started at Texas. Oh man, this guy's great. And he was great. And he was a kind of a different quarterback, a little more finesse all the way. He could fire the ball, but he didn't seem to be really gunning it in there or whatever. But on that play right there, it's like, how do you not? He's a right-handed quarterback, and that guy's coming from the right side. It wasn't the blind side hit. How do you not notice and see him and protect the football? I think that definitely hurt his draft stock, and he went pretty far down in the draft, for him.
Yeah,
So
and then you look at that stuff, and like I said, going back to whatever you want to look at, coaching and everything else, the whole the Quinn Ewers thing and the Jalen Monroe thing. The fact that Jalen Monroe was fast, I don't understand why. There's a couple times in those games, Oklahoma, Michigan, the Texas game with Ohio State, or there's another Texas game at anyway. Why they didn't make a change? You got a guy.
quarterback change.
Quarterback change, yes,
Yeah.
quarterback change. You got a guy, because there was times when when Arch Manning came in, he did well. Given a lot of times it was a cleanup or something like that. But
Right.
Ewers did get hurt, and
Yep.
he came in and played it and played well.
He started a couple games last year, I think.
Yeah. So I'm thinking, well, why wouldn't you change that? I don't understand that. And of course now people say, well, if Arch Manning was that good, why did Quinn Ewers keep starting in all
Hey,
those games? That
ha- had
baffles
you
me.
had you ever heard of Tua Tagovailoa before that national championship game?
Ever? No.
I
Well,
never heard of.
I have heard
You
of
might
it.
have.
Yeah.
But I'd never heard of him before. And of course, Jalen Hurts was a name, and people, and Saban pulled that plug, and look how good that turned out. So,
Well, exactly.
yeah, you have, and even Dabo pulled the plug on Ugalulule, whatever his name was, for Trevor Lawrence or the guy before him.
Yeah, the guy's he's been to like 4 colleges
Yeah.
now.
And everybody's like, whatever. And then Lawrence turned out to be pretty good that year. They won the national championship. So when you see it, and I'm not saying Arch is that, who knows, because they didn't do it. So we'll never know. And even if he wins it this year, doesn't mean he was good that last year. Who knows? But maybe he wasn't ready. Kind of like Burrow, they said when he transferred after spring to LSU, they were like, he wasn't the quarterback he was the next year, because it takes time to get into the system, and he missed all spring ball with LSU, so he had hardly any time. But the year after that, the dude was lights out. So.
Oh, yeah.
Who knows? It'll be interesting, because even if Arch is really good, if he ain't got everybody around him and ain't calling good plays and playing good complementary football, it'll hurt things. He'll be kind of like an Ole Miss quarterback with a lot of stats, and they can't get anywhere in the SEC or in the CFP.
Yeah. The thing with Arch Manning, Texas does have some question marks on their offensive line. They lost their best offensive lineman.
Yep.
I believe he's out for the season.
Just happened like last week, right?
So they were talking about we got to shuffle some things around and do that. So there is question marks with their offensive line, and that was their problem last year.
Yep.
They're pretty solid defense, and they had some key receivers and a running back, but the key thing was their offensive line. They didn't protect all that well against the marquee teams that they faced.
Yeah, and they had like Golden and another guy that were both really good, and they're both gone. But they have that Wingo guy that's crazy fast. I think the guy's still got some decent receivers. One thing Arch can do that Ewers couldn't very well was run. Arch does have good running ability, so that's one thing in his cap, if you will, that if he's got to get out, he can do it better than Ewers, because Ewers kind of hangs in the pocket a little bit too much, which. He wasn't going nowhere. You just got to get rid of the football when the clock's ticking. So that was I was as happy as anybody when that ball bounced into Jack Sawyer's hand. But make no mistake, he held that ball way too long. He looked like Shedeur Sanders out there, holding on to that ball forever.
Yeah, that was. But anyways, regardless, those things happens, and you call it whatever you want, fate, luck,
right?
Whatever. But there's teams that just seems to find that, and maybe Ohio State has found that now, and maybe that's going to carry with them.
Yeah, never know. I mean, I didn't know. It's like when they had Haskins, and then he's gone. I'm like, okay, now we got C.J. Stroud. Okay, kid out of California, wasn't sure. He ends up being to this point the best passer I've ever seen at Ohio State. He just was dropping dimes. That he was really good. He was a solid passer, deep ball, but they couldn't win any Big Ten championships with him. It wasn't his fault. I mean, the defense was not great when he was there for the couple years he started, and then he goes to the pros and he's lighting it up. I mean,
Well, yeah,
so
that's what I was going to say. He's doing it in the NFL.
yeah, so he was the real deal, and so maybe Julian saying is, maybe he's not. I mean, we won't know until we find out when they start playing games.
Right.
I hope he's good, or good enough. I should say. They're like, there's no pressure on you. Just find a way to win the game. I mean, yeah. So, LSU and Clemson, we talked about them a little bit. There's a ton of pressure on Brian Kelly. They what 3 or 4 straight season openers they've lost or something.
I believe so. Yeah.
So, and he's going. So it's Death Valley against Death Valley at Clemson's Death Valley for the right to say who has the real Death Valley. I think it's a tough road game for LSU, even though their SEC team, I think Clemson, like you said, they're a tough out. They looked really good this year. They looked good last year. They got our quarterback back. They got good receivers. Their defense is supposed to be pretty top notch. Man, that's going to be a crazy good game. What a way to finish this Saturday.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to that game.
Yeah. In Nussmeier, I mean, I don't know if that's going to light them up or if it's just going to be a defensive struggle. It's going to be hard to tell because both the quarterbacks are pretty good. So I don't know. That's going to. I think the winner of that will for sure is going to have a nice leg up, on their conference. I mean, it's not a conference game because they're doing, but going in, if LSU goes into Death Valley and wins, then they got that as a tiebreaker against them, and then the monkey's off their back. If Clemson loses that game, it might hurt them a little more just because that was a tough non-conference game that they lost, and now they don't play any. That's probably the toughest team they play all year is until they play Georgia Tech, maybe. And I don't mean tough as in championship. I mean Georgia Tech punch in the mouth the whole game, So
right.
you want to buy after you play Georgia Tech. There's no doubt.
Well, I mean, LSU still got to get past Alabama.
Yeah,
they got to. I don't know if they play
Texas, Georgia, right?
Texas. Well, yeah, Georgia definitely. I don't know if they even play Texas. They may, but yeah, I mean, there's games that they got to get by. That's going to. But certainly that would catapult their season with that kind of win. That's the kind of thing that can carry on, and that's what you kind of hope for. But still, in the grand scheme of things, the injuries, experience, everything that happens throughout the season is going to be real interesting. If we see a great game between Texas and Ohio State tomorrow, which very possible, may not be the game that we see in the playoffs if it happened, if that was to happen.
Yeah.
We may see something completely different, and me and you could be talking. Right now, we're talking. Well, we don't know. A few months down the road, we could be talking about it and like, oh, well, we kind of know.
Yeah,
this,
I expect. I've watched a lot of talking heads. I think Texas Iron. Hey, I'm kind of leaning towards it's going to be more of a tight, lower scoring game. I think neither one of the teams wants to put their quarterback in a position where he's going to have to make, things that's going to, you don't want to throw him to the wolves, try to establish the run, try to make, decent throws to the outside, nothing over the middle early, just, you never know how the game unfolds, all of a sudden stuff starts happening. If, I can see either one of the teams, if they wanted to try to shoot one deep just to keep people honest, they both got the players to do it. So it'd be interesting, but I feel like it's going to be more of a defensive struggle. Nobody wants to go down too much. Nobody wants to, go crazy too early. I mean, so it's who knows? But that's what I feel is, especially with both teams having young quarterbacks. First big starts.
There's only so much you can do against your own team, scrimmage wise and everything else.
Right.
Until you walk out on the field against a quality opponent that pretty much has the same kind of type of talent that you do.
Yeah.
Like I said, and that's another one of those big question marks that we've talked about several times tonight. that makes the weekend so exciting.
Yeah, and playing talent like that in your first game really is win or lose. Unless you just get thumped, it's kind of set your season up because when you play, directional you, cupcake you, and then boom, a huge game. You're not really battle tested. So you play this game, and then it's going to be like everybody else for a while. Isn't going to be as tough as those dudes were, because those are big 5-star guys and stuff. So it should be nice for both those teams moving forward. I know Texas went to Michigan last year and won. That wasn't a huge test because Michigan was just completely not the team that just won the national championship, and they weren't even a good team.
Right.
I think Michigan was dead last in passing in the entire FBS or something like that last year. It was pretty horrible. So, but yeah, it's gonna be lots of good games. Probably the one game I'm not really looking forward to seeing, and it's on Monday night, and that's North Carolina and whoever they're playing. It's
Carolina.
what's his face is Belichick. He's playing TCU. It's on Monday night. I'm like, I don't know where that game came from and why it's on a Monday night, but so that one, I don't know. I might do something on Monday night to catch the score or whatever. But
yeah, it's kind of a little bit different. You get to see a college game on a Sunday and then a college game on a Monday night.
Right.
Definitely the NFL night, so to speak.
Right.
That makes it interesting. Hey, it's okay with me if if it was all college football as far as I'm concerned. But
make no mistake, no doubt.
Yeah, so that'll be exciting weekend, really. Just everything that's happening, and hopefully we'll be able to do a post game. Come early in the week. Hopefully we can do a post game about some of this since there is so many marquee matchups, and it's going to give us it's going to give everybody a whole lot more to talk about and some ideas of what we've seen and what a little bit more what to expect. Even though the season's very young and it's a long way to go, but it's going to be exciting to talk about all what we see tomorrow.
Oh yeah. Well, I got ideas on that, so we'll talk about that off here. So, you ready to wrap it up, or you got any more things you want to talk about, or are we good for now?
Yeah, I think that's big day, lots of big matchups. All we can do is sit back and watch it because there's nothing I can do to change anything that's going to happen other than root for them. But I'm really excited. I'm going to have this big old chair over here. I'm going to be setting my big butt in it, and I'll probably only get up and go to the bathroom or get something to eat. That's it. So I'll be sitting there till about midnight.
We will be mirrors of each other for sure.
Yeah, exactly.
All right. Well, then we're going to wrap it up for now. Enjoy the football tomorrow, guys. It's going to be amazing. If you're catching this later on, live, there's a YouTube, there's Facebook. Give us a like, give us the bell, hit the bells, hit the subscribe and all that, and we'll be talking more about a regular schedule we can work out. So I'm going to experiment with some things getting the word out. So we'll talk about that. But enjoy tomorrow. College football is completely back, but tomorrow is when it's officially back because everybody else is playing tomorrow. We sprinkled in some other games ever since I think last week. So should be enjoyable. Everybody enjoy it, and we will talk to you next time.